Hi everyone, this is Perfume Coast, so welcome to my channel. Today's podcast is dedicated to the new 2025 release by the house Gucci, which is called Gucci Guilty Absolu de Parfum. So without further ado, let's jump into the ocean of perfumes. And as always, let's also dive into the notes that Fragrantica is listing. So on the top we've got bitter almond, bergamot and mandorla. In the middle there's wisteria, rose and patchouli. And finally in the base there's amaretto, coffee, tonka and vanilla. So let me say straight away that this scent is probably my best 2025 discovery so far. It's so unique. And let me tell you how and why. So the opening is somewhat dark and extremely gourmand. I smell tons of sweet nutty goodness that's delicious and, again, gourmand. I'm really thinking of concentrated almond paste first, but then it just doesn't quite explain all the sweetness and density of this fragrance. The complexity is truly niche-like here and more. So, along with nuttiness, sweetness and powderiness, all of which is very much gourmand of course, there's also this honey-like undertone and also a bitterish accord. And then I realized that the kind of nuttiness that I'm smelling in here would be more of a walnut rather than almond. And then it all just adds up. So what I'm smelling here is straight up my sweet, dense and obviously very walnutty baklava. And the presence of honey-like undertone also makes sense because very often a baklava dessert does contain a good dose of honey. And for those of you who have never tasted baklava in real life, it's effectively a Middle Eastern Southeast Europe dessert consisting of layers of puff pastry filled up with nuts, very often walnuts. And these layers are also sweetened with honey. So this beautiful and unique perfume smells exactly that. Tons of honey-like sweetness, touch of buttery phyllo pastry accord, and enhanced nuttiness with a bit of bitter undertone coming from walnut that always has this bit of bitterness to it. I can almost smell that chunky crushed walnut texture. And if I'm looking at the notes list, there's no walnut of course. But trust me, it's there. Well, at least to my nose. It's very much there, and specifically a walnut, providing this nutty, powdery, bitterish aura. Perhaps walnut impression is achieved here by a combination of almond and coffee, which, by the way, I do not necessarily detect here on its own. And if I think of this, almond supported by other notes such as vanilla, coffee and amaretto shouldn't really be far off from a walnut impression. So this perfume goes straight to the top of my wish list. But back to the fragrance. As the scent sits, it develops into a bit more balsamic, creamy and smoother impression of our walnut baklava, as if giving a bit more spicy feature, which creates in its turn a nice perfumey vibe, but at the same time it doesn't take away from any gourmand quality that this fragrance has. Obviously it's your evening occasion bet for a colder season, and whilst there is this similar offering for men in Gucci line, this one, in my view, is very unisex because of all the multitude of complex balsamic and bitterish accords. By the way, I do have an OG in my collection, which is called Gucci Guilty Absolute, which you can see here, and it's nothing like this one. So let's get reminded of the notes that OG has. So according to Fragrantica, what we're dealing here with on the top would be blackberry, pink pepper and bergamot. In the middle, we've got cypress, Bulgarian rose, woody notes, and vetiver. And finally, in the base, there's Indian patchouli and amber. So, as said before, it's very different. This one is fresh, more of a spring-summer bed, very heavy on sparkly and juicy blackcurrant that's not too sweet either. It's also quite tart and has certain complexity to it as well. There's a note of cypress that gives our blackcurrant, that's front and center by the way, this extra green and a bit aquatic undertone, which altogether gives off impression of rhubarb somehow, very much like the one of Memo called Corfu that also is part of my collection. So in the end, the OG is a complete and utter opposite to this new release, and it almost feels like a bit masculine leaning. giving off tones of cologne-like vibes, but perhaps cologne that goes slightly far and beyond its usual citrusy profile, because it's topped up with this bright note of blackcurrant. But back to the new release, I really recommend it, especially in light of all the spooky and festive seasons with all the holidays facing us. But that's it, guys. This wraps up the video. If you like this podcast, please give it a like. Please consider subscribing and sharing your comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.